Welcome. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be in the US or the world. My name is Noel Johnson, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing here for SmartLab. We've got a great presentation for you guys today, focusing on implementing successful project-based learning and STEM initiatives. We've got three fantastic presenters lined up for you today with Jorge Valenzuela, educator, coach, and author; Mark Whelton, Superintendent for Bridgeport-Spaulding School District in Michigan; and Chris Young, educator, instructional coach, and STEM facilitator from the Oakwood School in North Carolina. Now, real quick, before I hand it over to George about SmartLab, SmartLab, we provide basically a comprehensive turnkey STEM and learning environment. We've been fortunate enough to serve over 2.5 million students in our tenure, and we do that by providing over 500 different student-led PBL project starters, wrapping it around with 140 different types of technologies, applications, kits, and equipment. And we deliver that through 8 different areas of STEM exploration. And I think you'll hear maybe some more about that from Chris and Mark today. All right. So I'd like to hand it over to our good friend George. He is a well-regarded, nationally recognized performance education coach, author, and speaker at Lifelong Learning Defined. He got his start in education and has helped countless educators improve their leadership and instructional innovation skills. George specializes in emphasizing core instruction and is a trusted partner of reputable professional training in team building, project-based learning, STEM pathways, and life skills integration across curriculum. He partners the superintendents and provides professional development on behalf of ASCD, Corwin, Premier Speakers Bureau, and Solution Tree. George has authored several different books and is the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast host. You can find George on both Instagram and Twitter, now X, at George Does PBL. George, thank you for being with us here today. Please let me hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Now, before beginning, I want to thank the unsung heroes. First, Noel Johnson, Ann Sullivan, Regina with EdWeb and her entire team, and also the entire SmartLab team. Thank you for inviting us today, and Mark and Chris as well. As stated previously, my name is George, and I'll be discussing 3 things. First is defining project-based learning plus. 2 is providing a framework for helping young people connect their passions with their interests to a purpose. And lastly, if we have some time, a framework for artificial intelligence that educators can use. If you look into the chat, there's a parking lot with all of the resources and all of the information from my portion of this webinar. And before beginning, I would like to speak a little bit about my work. I have 22 years of experience as both a classroom and online teacher, as a district administrator, as an education coach, author, and speaker. In my current context, I'm a teacher at Old Dominion University in Virginia, and I'm the lead coach at Lifelong Learning Defined. As Noel pointed out, I also coach on behalf of other top organizations in education. And in these spaces, I coach thousands of educators, including my own students and young people, in the following topics. Please take a moment to read these, and don't worry if you can't capture it all. It is being recorded. I'm a published researcher in the Journal of Computer Science Integration, and I'm also the author of several books, including my brand new book, Project-Based Learning Plus, which became available last month. And on the QR code, there's a 25% off if you're interested in purchasing the book. My brand of PBL is called PBL Plus, and we call it PBL Plus because we want to inspire you to focus on both academics, STEM, but also life skills, with a special emphasis on social and emotional learning, or SEL. Now, before proceeding, let's briefly define what we mean by life skills. As we all know, all young people are not the same, and they all don't require the same life skills. Some may need knowledge of self. Others may need to focus on SEL, but others will need to focus on life skills that you would typically see on a graduate profile in a district. In PBL Plus, we want our teachers, our parents, and our kids to have a say over the life skills they know that young people need. So I encourage you to think deeply about your kids and consider the skills that they need in tandem with the academics. And we'll also provide you a ton of resources and ideas here today. So let's develop some understanding around PBL Plus. Now, before we explain what it is, let's briefly, with comedy, show you what it's not.
What are you doing? You gotta go? It's dressed like a President Day. It's supposed to be Martin Van Buren. Who? Martin Van Buren. Google Martin Van Buren.
Although comical, many of us have seen or done projects like this, either as a teacher, a parent, or a student. Our goal with STEM Lab Learning, with Project Base Plus and PBL in general, is to focus on PBL as a research-informed instructional approach. So I want you to, into the chat, write what you think we mean by projects when we say PBL. And take a moment. And in the meanwhile, I will define project-based learning. PBL is a research-based instructional approach. And this is what I want us to understand. It's a research-based instructional approach that educators can use to engage young people over an extended period of time. Learning takes time in a project. It doesn't happen in 1 or 2 days because there's intellectual challenge that young people have to accomplish first. And they need to solve real world problems to acquire the skills and dispositions they need for a successful life. In the past decade, I've had the pleasure of coaching educators in PBL throughout the United States. For this purpose, I've been to 30 states and over 70 cities in our country. I also teach PBL online to various educators all around the world. And in my travels, I've met a lot of great educators. But there are several misconceptions about project-based learning that hold some of us back. So let's quickly dispel a few of those. If you're new to PBL, only implement one project a semester and for no more than 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Build your confidence, build your self-efficacy for implementing projects, and do more as time permits and as your kids are able to do them. One important concept to also understand is that in PBL, the products, what the kids make, are not the actual project. The project is the process, not the product. Another important concept to understand is that in PBL, projects are the main course of learning and not the dessert. Think about it. Typically in a meal, the dessert comes last. And in dessert projects, so does the project. If you look at the pacing chart, you'll see that for 2.5 weeks, there's lots of learning going on. And then in the last week, midweek, then they create what they call the project. But if you think about it, it's really a product. And then with very little turnaround time, the kids have to present it. That's not what PBL is. And we're not saying that's a bad thing to do, but we're saying that's not what authentic project-based learning is. Now, if you look at a main course project, you'll see that the project is introduced on day 1. And the teacher can even invite experts into the classroom. And you're going to see that lectures are replaced with mini lessons. Mini lessons unpacking learning targets, academic content, life skills, and there's more of a focus on work time, as you can see. In work time, it can be done in flexible grouping, where our teachers can work with young people if they need remediation, if they need some tier 2 instruction. Young people, they can work together and also individually. But let me back up a little bit. And you'll see that after every chunk of work time, significant chunk of work time, because young people are working in drafts. After every draft, there's a feedback protocol, which is a formative assessment opportunity, which allows young people to receive timely feedback on their work. They can either continue learning or improving the work, I should say, or they can continue in the learning. And you'll see that this really becomes a 4-step square dance that by the end of the unit, of the project, they introduce their final product to the public. And the public is anyone outside the 4 walls of the classroom. It could be administrators, it could be other teachers, it could be other classes, it could be the community, it could be business folks, experts. But the point is this: the work is shown to other people. And This is what the 4 steps look like in my classroom. Mini lesson, followed by work time and reflection, feedback protocol, and then the kids have a chance to either revise or continuing working. It's not a perfect process, but it's a 4-step square dance that allows me to know in my instruction exactly where I'm at any given moment. And so it's important for educators to manage not just student learning, not just student behavior, but also the process. And I want you to think of your project as your unit plan. Okay. And I only have 10 minutes left, so I will offer a reflection question. And I love this quote by John Dewey. We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. So what I would like for you to do is reflect on one of these 2 questions. How has your understanding of PBL shifted thus far? And how would you explain the concept of main course, not dessert, to a colleague? And even though we have a lot of information here, you can always play this video back. If you notice that on the cover of my book, I purposely put a graphic of a framework in a brain. And I learned this concept in the PhD program. Before anything becomes a mindset, something that people naturally do, it's got to be a framework first. Framework first, mindset second, is a powerful principle that I lift up in my workshops and in my classroom with learners of all ages. Think of a framework as a recipe. Make believe you're in your kitchen and you have all the ingredients for a dish that you've never made before. Let's say lasagna. Even if you have all the ingredients and all the tools, you're not going to get very far if you don't have the framework. And so PBL Plus and what I've outlined in the book has a framework. And we don't have enough time to really cover all of this, but what I really want to point out is that the first element is to understand project-based learning as a research-based instructional approach. And all the experts arrived at a consensus, all the PBL experts in 2018 arrived at a consensus that these are the 6 elements that have to be present in a project in order for it to truly be high quality PBL. These elements, they define the student experience and they provide educators a launching point for their PBL journey. And it's really just bridging life skills and academic content. So in the interest of time, I want to briefly show you a video of what that looks like. But before doing that, I want to point this out. It's very important that we understand what our students need. That's a question that my very first mentor said to me. He said to me that before you buy any equipment, any books, before you invest in PD, before you plan a project, you have to ask yourself, what do my students need? And so one of the things that I ask educators in our workshops is this: what do your students need? And you can put a lot of things into the chat, but we know right now that according to data, young people need emotional support more than ever. Many are suffering from poor mental health. They feel isolated and hopeless. In addition, many young people are abusing substances like drugs, alcohol, and vaping. And many are struggling at home, experiencing emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and as we all know, poverty. As a result, many young people don't want to be in school. And that is something that we really need to consider as we're planning projects. And if you look at the Wordle, there's a lot of things that young people need. And we can't solve all these problems. But I think that if we focus on things that the kids care about, their passions and their interests, and put that into our STEM and PBL projects, then it'll give them purpose and motivation to do the work. So I want to show you a video of what that looks like with one of my older partner schools, and then I'll pass the torch.
Hello from Bunch Middle School in Compton, California. Our tech team are exploring environmental issues in our community, and we were trying to create measurable solutions.
Here are some ideas that we've been working on. The problem that my group is trying to solve is environment issues, which is for me energy.
In Compton, we have a lot of traffic and cars, and we need to improve our public transportation. My project is about a recycling robot that goes to people's houses to collect cans.
So I'm learning about the carbon footprint, and my goal is to have it so that everyone in Compton has a lower carbon footprint than they have now. I've been collecting data, and I found out that in my family, our carbon footprint is above average, which isn't good.
We are working on food deserts. Where I live, there's not that many nice and organic food stores. There's liquor markets or food markets, but right there they have junk food, soda, chips.
We're going to take the project back to our community, and it's basically going to inform people about what food deserts are, because some people don't actually recognize that we are living in a food desert.
My project is about illegal dumping. Sometimes when I'm walking on the sidewalk, there's like just trash. People actually dump like hazardous things. Like for example, the wood pallets, they have nails. They split them open and you walk. You could walk. You never know where the nail is. You could step on it.
It's important for me because it involves me and my family, and it feels great to help other people fix this problem as well because it also affects them.
It's important for students in Compton to know so that we can teach others on how to be eco-friendly, so that we can do it ourselves, make sure the world is a better place.
Nos da felicidad saber que podemos ayudar a otras personas, poder resolver sus problemas, en vez de que otras personas lo hagan, nos hace sentir a nosotros mejor, más felices de dar ideas o de hacer de nosotros.
We use STEM throughout the whole process. Science to research, technology to code and program, engineering to design the robot. And we use math to find the data that we need to build our robot.
It can be very fun to help our community, solving different problems and the kind of stuff we learn here at school.
Before I started doing the research, I'll just walk around, see the traffic now. It's just part of a normal day. I found out that if we actually find a solution to this problem, it could be a big change in our environment, to our community. So,
All right. So, in the interest of time, I'll stop there. And I realize that my time is really running out. But I do want to say there's more than one way to skin a cat. And what we should try to do is to make things as linear as possible, as simple as possible for our students. And that's why I love the concept of frameworks. So here's a framework that's in the parking lot. There's an article with the steps, a student handout for helping young people discover what their passions, their interests, and their purpose of helping others. And even if they can't find the passion, they can't find an interest, they can definitely help other people. I also created a new framework for helping teachers master artificial intelligence. And I know that our two guests will be speaking about these things, but I want to have folks understand. We need to understand the jargon. We need to understand what AI is, what machine learning is. And these are very basic things. I put an article that's in the parking lot that has projects that are free that you can already use for explaining these concepts to young learners, well, actually learners of all ages, but also generative AI, which I know you heard a lot about that. And it's a powerful thing because it can take something old, like my high school picture, and it can recreate something a lot more beautiful, even with a 60-minute video. Like on my podcast, all I have to do is enter my 60-minute video and it turns it into a 40-second reel like this.
What are 3 things?
It's just really amazing stuff. You can save time using ChatGPT. I have another article that's in the parking lot where Edutopia published this and explains how to cut back on all your lesson planning through ChatGPT. And also the Senate cited this article. I'm very proud about that. And there's another article for using other time savers. Don't forget about safety. Forget about safety. I'm just going to flash that there real quick. And the ethical use of AI. But also, here's some tools that I use in my work. And in this article, you can also find how to use a few of them in your student projects. All right, y'all. That's my part of the webinar. I'm going to stop sharing. I know we have a poll that we want you to do. What PBL or STEM initiatives? Okay, and you have a moment to answer those. What PBL and or STEM initiatives has your school or district tried? Okay. So it looks like most of it has been done after school. That's what it looks like. Extracurricular. Okay. Noel, is there anything you want to point out here on these stats?
No, I think one of the things it says to me is there's a lot of people in the exploration phase of this. What does it mean? How do we implement it? What do those flavors of implementation look like? I think that's where Mark and Chris are really going to come in and help us here too. I would be interested, we've got the optional like extracurricular courses versus after school. We've got them tied together here, but I could also see how they're kind of two different levels, right? Are you able to manage an after school program, a club style scenario? Or do you actually have courses layered in through your day where maybe once a week or twice a week, students are able to go through and participate like they might physical education or music or theater or something else. So it'd be interesting to double click on that one a little bit, but this is great. No.
All right, so I'm going to close the poll, and now we're going to move into Mark's part of the presentation. So let me introduce Mark really quick. So Mark Whelton is a 6-year superintendent at Bridgeport-Spaulding Community School District in Bridgeport, Michigan. With a student-first approach, he emphasizes no barriers, just possibilities. Mark has an extensive background in education, including teaching, coaching, and roles at the Michigan Department of Education. Take it away, Mark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully it's afternoon for you. If you hear some noise in the background, our school day is ending, so the kids are kind of milling around outside of our athletic center. So the important thing that I want to come across is this is a win for kids. And George touched on several topics that are important for us as educators, for adults, to be thinking about for kids, because I think a lot of education is what do we think about school and not necessarily what that experience is when you're 10, 11, 12, 14, 15. It's more important that in my 40s. How does it fit me in my 40s? And this is about kids. And so one of the things that I think is super important about problem solving, even project-based, problem-solving, or play-based. I think you can use PBL in a number of ways. That's how we're doing it here. Is it empowers disadvantaged students and non-disadvantaged students, but for me, and I'll get into our demographics here in a minute, it empowers them with a substantial academic support. And when we talk about SmartLab, and I'll get into that later, it's also a support for our staff and the students together. So what matters most to us, we've developed some shared beliefs here in Bridgeport, Michigan. Our students are important, incredibly important, but helping them achieve their hopes and dreams is supreme. We have to understand our community. That's really important. We can't just operate in isolation from a community that is very high poverty, very high crime. We need to realize that change comes through those decisive decisions, and we see the big picture. I'm 6 years in. I'm an anomaly for most superintendents. It's 2.5 years, and things change, and it has been a wild ride with COVID. So what's important is the biggest picture we can see, leading with our brain and our heart, because sometimes if we go follow our heart, we don't see that there's change happening and improvements that could happen. And then looking at it through a lens of students first. Challenges. We are having problems. So we are shifting from being a problem-having community to a problem-solving community. It'll be beautiful in the future when we are all problem solvers and we aren't looking to someone else to solve a problem for us. We have a very large percentage of economically disadvantaged students, 91.1% and maybe higher since this data was taken. Crime and violence is increased over the last several years, and our school district specifically was in financial debt in 2017. We are now, actually, we're at 5 million. I didn't update this since the last audit. So at $5 million in fund balance, we're very healthy. So it gives us a chance to be able to do amazing things for students and staff. This is one of them. Problem-based, project-based, play-based learning that is fun and engaging. So what were our objectives? Because this really started before ESSER, and then ESSER was like an injectable boost for our programs. And that was a shift in thinking. We had 3 buckets: health and safety, infrastructure, academics. Believe it or not, a lot of our focus on health and safety wasn't about masks, social emotion. We do deal with social emotional, but imagine health and safety when you are a problem solver. I'm not living in poverty. I'm solving small pockets for myself, for my family, for the greater community in the region. And so we really focused on how do we engage in the health and safety sector, even though traditionally we look at things strictly in the academic component. So that, along with infrastructure, are some of the changes that we implemented through ESSER. We focused on bringing the real world into the classroom. That's a little bit scary. We went up and down, made connections. We're in an automotive corridor here. And if anyone is familiar, I saw a few Michigan folks in there. You're familiar with, we've lost a lot of jobs, lost a lot of economic driving factors in our region. And so 21st century skills, it's almost crazy to think about the fact that we use that in its 2023, yet in our situation and probably many others, 21st century skills are still tough to attack. Fostering relationships that can translate into job opportunities. Talking about school to work. I love college, not hating on college at all. What if we can get kids school directly to the job? How amazing would that be? And we're really targeting that now with our project-based, problem-based, and play-based learning. Solidifying the relationship between the community and the students and making relationships. I just put 2 companies on there. These are big time companies that some of you might be familiar with. And there's dozens of them in the Saginaw Bay region that we've partnered with so that kids are learning, I'm going to solve a problem. I'm not going to quit on this. I'm going to develop grit and effort. And then we have companies that are saying, hey, we want you in our family. So strategy, dreamers become creators, and creators change the world. This is I live and breathe this. I'm a dreamer. I shoot for the moon so we can get out of the atmosphere, and that's what I believe we're doing here in Bridgeport, and I hope that more people can do that around the country and probably internationally. But utilizing the funding, any extra funding, an extra set of dollars in a big, big way, in a big picture way, and helping our kids and students think big picture, not just the moment right now, but the moment beyond the moments that our kids kind of are taught. Like, let's look at social media and right now, help them get to thinking big. So we had some anticipated benefits and outcomes that we're looking at in making a wholesale transition over the last few years, and that is increased student engagement. I cannot emphasize that enough. We have kids in our STEAM lab and our SmartLab that we've taken in 16, 18, 20 adults, and the kids don't even know we're in there visiting and viewing. They're busy putting things together. They're busy plugged in and looking at a video about how to complete a task. They're busy programming 3D printers. They're busy engraving some products with the laser engraver and running the CNC machine. Dust is flying everywhere, and they don't really focus on what's going on around me. So it is project-based, problem-based learning, and I might as well throw play-based, because when we get the little kids in there, they're putting stuff together. They're having an absolute ball, And if I can talk super fast, I can get the pictures later on. And if you're listening or you're able to access the presentation later, you can go in and look at these pictures of before and after and this engagement with kids. Kids are happier. They're absolute happier people because they're doing stuff that they're interested in. That's one of the great parts about having choice and options. And that's what George was talking about is the kids, maybe they're really interested in architecture. Great, go design your dream house. I think I was one of those kids, but I did it on a drafting board with my teacher who was really a snoozer, but I made it happen because I was super excited about making my house that I thought I would build someday. I never have, but that's beside the point. Kids are dialed in and they're super excited to talk to you about it in the hall and what they're doing. They're proud of their school. When they drove a robot over here 2 weeks ago and talked to me through the robot, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is insane!" And they're doing this from an iPad, driving it around, and I'm located in our high school building, and the kids got an absolute kick out of it because they came through the superintendent's office with their little robot. But they're proud of it, and that effort and grit cannot be underestimated or understated whatsoever. We have generations of kids that have learned to quit on education, quit on their learning, and quit on school. And some of them have quit on work. And this is about not quitting. And we've tried to do lots of different things in education about grit and effort. This is self-inherent. They want to complete stuff. And we have a round coming up with standardized tests, so that's one of our anticipated outcomes is an increase in our performance on standardized tests. So what does this look like? Project-based. This is SmartLab. It's college and career ready students. And when I say college and career, we have lots of kids going to college. But we have kids that are totally into going straight to the workforce. We had a manufacturing day last Friday, and about a dozen high school juniors and seniors stuck behind because they were interested in learning more because what these businesses, some of them were listed in an earlier slide, are willing to pay is more than their own parents are making right now. And that was very exciting to a high school senior that's about to graduate and has the opportunity to go right to work. It's equity in education. It's fair. You get to choose what you want and you go as deep as you want. You want to do audio and video, you want to produce a music video, you want to create a movie, maybe commercials, go for it. Increased achievement for students that are at risk. And by at risk, they are leaving out of our particular building and maybe going to a home that the direction to that house is not safe. And where they're at, they don't come out during the evening because it's not safe. And that 21st century skill, I laugh about it still, but it is a skill that we are still working on. George brought up AI, all in on it, and so are the kids. And the people that are worried about AI are the ones that aren't using it, and they're scared that somebody that's using it is going to take their job. And that might be our kids. And for me, that's okay, because I'm not far from retirement. But for the rest of us, do an environmental assessment. Take a look at this picture. This was our K1 building. It was kind of a workroom. It's a hallway, actually. We're making use of every last bit of space. Our student enrollment has increased, especially at this school. Very special. And we go from that to this. Kids are busy. Look at their building. I can't tell you enough about how excited they are to show you what they're doing. This young man right here, this is a drone. That's how excited he had a drone, but not only any old drone, he put an extra battery on it because drone batteries don't last very long, Mr. Whelton. He's 5 years old. How amazing is that? How much time do I have? I don't know how much time I got left. George, do you
Hold
know?
on one sec.
You
One
got
sec.
you got a couple more minutes, Mark,
All
and then
right,
we're going
I'm
to head over
firing
to
away.
Chris.
I'm going to keep going. This was my elementary school. It was a basic teacher's professional development room. Now we moved that room into a totally different space, jazzed it up. But this room, we knocked down a wall, expanded it, and created a different style for our SmartLab for students. And you see they're working on laptops. They also have the Swing fully loaded program, or the fully loaded screens that they're working on. This was day three of our school year this year. That's elementary. We go over to the middle school, and our middle school, as you can see, traditional computer lab, not super engaging. I know my middle school computer teacher, who's now a SmartLab facilitator. I saw her name pop up. I know she's on here. Stacy, this was not super exciting, was it? Although, check it out now. Kids are, I mean,
Wow.
this is unbelievable. They were working on the area of a cube right here. We had 18 adults walking around looking, and they didn't even have time to talk to people. That's how engaged they were. It's pretty exciting. I'm Mark Whelton, Superintendent of Bridgeport-Spaulding Community School District, and I'd like to introduce you to the first K-12 SmartLab program in the Great Lakes region. Our Smart Labs breathe life into education, igniting curiosity using a hands-on, project-based learning platform that impacts all students. From programming 3D printers and CNC machines, building robots, solar power grids, and creating your own music videos, all Bridgeport students K-12 have the opportunity to learn skills that can be transferred directly into the workforce. There is no better time to be a Bearcat. Enrollment is open now through September 8th. Welcome to Bridgeport, where we live our vision of no barriers, just possibilities every day.
Apply now at gobearcats.net. School starts September 5th.
I work with a lot of superintendents, and we are focusing on core instruction, on the passions of kids, but I have never heard a superintendent articulate STEM education and computer science and play-based learning and project-based learning and problem-based learning the way you did. And I can see you at every major conference talking about your story, your school district, and SmartLab. And I just want to commend you. All right, so
Thank you.
we will get back with you in a few minutes. Now for our final presenter, Christopher Young. He's an experienced educator and STEM facilitator at the Oakwood School in North Carolina. He's got 17 years of experience with STEM and computer science education. He holds leadership roles in STEM organizations and has several academic qualifications, including a big one, a certificate in computer science from Harvard University. Chris, we're so happy to hear from you. Take it away.
Thank you very much, George. Well, like he's introduced me, thank you. I am Chris. I currently work at the Oakwood School. Just to give you a little insight into where that's at, it's in Eastern North Carolina, a rural community. We are pre-K through 12th. We have about 370 students. And this is an elective class that I teach for the upper high school. And I put with waiting list for a reason. If you do the calculations, 370 students for pre-K through 12th. We have roughly 80 students in the upper school. I teach 8 classes. So if you do the math, it's hard to get a waiting list for a school so small. Yet this passion of project-based learning has taken over the school so much that not only do we have a waiting list for the upper school, we just got another lab for our lower and middle school last year, sort of to share this passion and purpose. Previously, I've taught in many schools from K-8, middle school, elementary school, and many Title I and low economic performing schools. The second thing I'll talk about is what SmartLab has done really to support me. There's a ton of it, but the most obvious is a variety of project-based learning equipment. When you walk in the lab, my first year was 2020, right after the COVID shutdown. When I walked in, everything was set up. It was a fully functional classroom with kit and organization. SmartLab installed everything. They set up everything. They installed all the software. They had the kits already unboxed. They had the 3D printers unboxed. They had the CNC, everything fully done. It was one-on-one training. So for a whole week, a trainer flew into Greenville, North Carolina and trained me one-on-one. And through the first few years, I received instructional coaching. And now I'm a coach for new facilitators through SmartLab. They also have a fully aligned curriculum with the new platform of Learning Hub. This is sort of taking off, and you're starting to see the passion of Learning Hub with a lot of the SmartLab facilitators. It's a great resource for the lab. They have tech support, local success agents, and yearly conferences. But the biggest one out of all this is SmartLab provides you the freedom and the ability to change and modify how your school sees fit. So I went to tour a school in Fayetteville, and they had a whole toolbox and toolkit with their facilitator, Kath. And I was talking to her about, why do you have this? And she's like, well, our students really want this more construction-based approach. And that sort of hit me that, like, you have the freedom of doing that. That's not really set by your curriculum. Well, the way the curriculum is set up, it is fully aligned, but you have freedom of choice, which I think is very big. Challenges our school was trying to solve when they put this in was, one, find a genuine hands-on STEAM opportunity. They wanted the ability for students to develop the 21st century skills that this lab does so well, and sort of set ourselves apart from everybody else. Students have a choice of what school they go to here. So what makes us different than everybody else? And honestly, this was the best opportunity for the students in our area. There's a lot of approaches I've used when implementing this lab. Of course, the hands-on part is the biggest, right? That's where students actually physically do it. Project-based, like we've been talking about here, but the biggest one is student-led. The students have the ability to choose what they want to do in this lab. I taught for a few years before I came into this approach, and I feel bad for my previous students, if you're on right now, of the way I taught. I would come into the class and tell you, today we're going to build a bridge. It's going to be 6 inches wide. It's going to be 2 inches in depth. And this is how we're going to do it. You're going to follow my instructions step by step on what to do. And I really never understood why that was wrong until I stepped into a student-led classroom. Now I walk in and I say, build a bridge. And I just watch them. And usually the first question is, well, what kind of bridge do you want me to build? I don't know. Have you done any research on bridges before? And they're like, no. Okay, so I sit down beside them and we do research. The idea that they get to choose what type of bridge they build or what type of project they do is very enlightening to the student. Most of the time in education, we specifically tell them A, B, C, D. And we don't give them a choice of saying, what letter do you want to start with? And you would be surprised at how much better projects turn out when the students have the ability to choose what they want to do. When I get people to come in and tour my class, I tell them all the time, this is a problem-solving class. Yes, we have all this cool stuff, but the biggest concept of this is being able to solve problems on your own. Mark did a great job at sort of explaining that too, where, yes, you have this idea. How are we going to achieve this? As a facilitator, I do not tell them what to do. They do it. It's hard at times when I know they're going to fail and I see mistakes they're doing, but I have to let them fail so that way they can teach themselves and they can learn through failure. The SmartLab has the 4 pillars of motivation, 21st century skills, integrated academics, and application. And we have the 8 areas of focus, which you can all see on their website. So when we first got the lab, this was before me here at Oakwood School, our library is what we had. And our upper head of school was the one that had to sign off on this. And she tells the story of she refused to let the library go. I'm an English teacher. I am not going to let our library go. She saw a lab in action, and within 10 minutes, she was like, yep, I'm ready to get one of these labs in my school. And then, of course, it was huge with connections in the business community and higher education. We have East Carolina University, home of the Pirates, down the street. And once this lab got put into our building, it was amazing at how ECU reached out to us. And now we're doing weekly conferences. Their students are coming to us. We're going to them, and we're collaborating. The same now with community college down the street, where it's more than just doing projects. We're now getting people who from all over the country who come to ECU and Pitt to come into our classroom and help these students out. Local businesses are huge, and they love the opportunities they can get from the lab. The one that has been talked about by both the previous speakers is artificial intelligence. This is a perfect example of how the lab can be catered to your school. Last year, I was approached by a student that said he wanted to learn about AI. And that wasn't one of the set scheduled rotations they have through the year. So I let him present this presentation, and I told him, I'm going to give you 6 class periods to do an AI presentation. 2 days later, he came back to me with a AI-generated children's book, AI-generated images, AI-generated voiceover, and he put a YouTube video up of a children's story. So on our YouTube page, we actually have a children's story that literally everything is AI-generated. It sort of shows you that, like, yes, some people can be scared of AI, but it's here. So now we have it as a rotation where we teach children and our students how to use AI effectively. Let's use the resource. It's a great resource to use, so why not be able to use it? The first year in my class, they have to do certain projects. If they take my class again, they get to explore options outside the class. So these are some of the things I want to show you here. One of our administrators come and said he was trying to get room numbers and nameplates for all of our doors in our school. He got a quote for $13,000 or something astronomical for a school of our size. So one of our students said, we have an engraver over here. Let's engrave some nameplates. And that's what they did. So for a cost of like $70 for the expenses, we engraved nameplates for every single school room in our school. We had students present at a national conference. You see here in this picture, there was a letter broken on our sign where student 3D printed it. We've had students make Rubik's Cube solvers. All of these are sort of examples of how you can use the base STEAM education and project-based, give it to the students saying, hey, come up with your own idea. If I were to tell them to build a Lego robot, it would be something boring. Giving them the choice, it's amazing at what students can do. This was one, the students' promotional drone shots. They used our drone to take promotional videos of our school. We create videos. We're actually doing documentaries now with local businesses. They've reached out to us and want us to do 30-second shots of their business and their products. We do laser engraving projects with our laser engraver. We had a student last year who wanted to make a rocking chair, and he actually laser engraved a rocking chair for his kid, or his brother in kindergarten. That was his idea. There's no way I could think of this. So the success from the lab that I've sensed in project-based is not necessarily the stuff, which is great. The curriculum is great, but it's given students the ability to explore themselves, right? What can you do? What problems can you solve? Let's use this for a greater good.
There's lots of creativity happening at a school in Greenville and is allowing students to create and think outside the box.
So what do you think makes this class different than other classes?
It's definitely the most hands-on and like creative learning class, I'd say.
This class is, it's a lot different from the standard teaching method of lecturing, slightly more interactive stuff with the teacher, because this is basically just, it's hands-on. You can do things on the computer, you can do things with your hands. It's really fun. Basically, you get an idea in your head and you just execute that, and if it doesn't work, you try again.
We just encountered an obstacle. We'll never say we can't do it, we're always going to persevere.
We had failed at a couple things before, when we built it, some pieces we slightly turned wrong and it messed everything up. It's very fulfilling when it finally worked.
You can fail in this class, but not actually fail. Failing is good because then you learn more and then you become better.
I feel like it's really cool because it's kind of student-led, so you're able to think of your own ideas and use them and just figure out what you want to do and do something with it.
As soon as you walk in, it's clear to see the desks are arranged into small pods, which means it is student-centered unlike any other class. Our students are on their own to explore and challenge themselves.
You have a set I guess, category, but like you can do whatever you want with that category, and you can kind of expand on that category.
Ability to choose what rotation you want to do. So if you have a special interest in a different rotation, you can do that instead of something that you're not interested in.
The ability to do what I want rather than what a teacher says I have to do. I'm free to explore what I want to explore and expand on my ideas in fields I'm interested in.
Something that I think is really awesome is whenever I have a rotation, I'm able to choose what I want to do. Like, I have so many options that's given in the lab.
It's a lot more free with what you can do. It's a lot more fun. Well, in most classes, you have to know specific things from the book. It's kind of, I guess, more uniform and kind of like a factory. But here, I guess I get to be like creative. You don't really have in other classes, you don't learn how to be creative. You make mistakes, you have to overcome them.
If it doesn't work, you just keep doing it until it does.
We are the learners. You're supposed to be a learner and figure out stuff on your own. And then, if you can't figure it out, you should ask someone.
Work through problems with a partner and solve your own problems instead of looking it up online or asking a teacher. You get to find your own solution to your problems.
The Oakwood STEAM Lab is an innovative class because not only are they doing a lot of hands-on experiential learning inside this classroom, but they're taking it outside of the classroom as well. For example, they've planned advisory Olympics for the entire upper school advisory program. They've also used class time to renovate and upgrade our student lounge. And they've also made signage for our classrooms and our teacher offices around the upper school as well. So these are just a few of the ways that our students have been innovative and creative in taking what they're learning in the classroom to the greater community.
I'd say it definitely challenges my creativity.
So I mean, there's not a lot of classes where you can just say that, oh, today I decided that I want to build an air-powered engine. Like that doesn't happen in other classes.
Yeah.
Like this is only something that happens here, and we can do just all sorts of things. I mean, there are really just limitless possibilities for what you can do. You start off with like a really broad idea, like we got pneumatics, which is just
let's build a steam engine.
Yeah. So we were cycling through ideas like, what if we made a steam engine? What if we do this? What if we do that?
I did a coding project, or I kept working on a coding project that I started in a different class.
What I decided to do for this project was redesign a room, the study lounge in the upper school.
3D printed letters for the sign at our school.
My most memorable project was the Rubik's Cube solver made out of Legos.
3D scanning our entire school.
Made a presentation on cryptology with my partner, and we presented it to a lower class.
And thank you very much. And I'll pass it back over to George.
Y'all, everyone watching this, please give both Chris and Mark virtual snaps in the chat, applause, send the emojis. So inspiring, so inspiring. And I do want to say this. I've had other opportunities as a school teacher to join other STEM and PBL programs. And I'm very selective in who I partner with. And when I got introduced to SmartLab and what they're doing, and just meeting the people in the company, seeing the educators that are involved, it's super inspiring. You can tell that this is about children and problem solving and empowering educators. That's why I'm attached to this. I look forward to other partnerships, but this is one that I truly believe in. And if you have the resources, I encourage you, reach out to these folks and figure out how you can train your teachers and your superintendents and your other directors. So I'm going to toss out a few questions that we've received from the audience. And either gentleman, you just hop in and just answer the one you want to answer. So the first thing is this. For someone who's interested in starting a STEM and PBL initiative in the school or in the district, what would you recommend be the first step?
I'll jump in. If the first thing you want to do is start this initiative, you got to look at the big picture. What is your goal? What is the overall outcome that you're looking to achieve. That's what a school board is wanting to know. They want to know, well, what is this going to accomplish for us? And the other piece is know what you're talking about. I've run into a lot of people have STEM, a lot of people have STEAM, and it's one person that figures out a series of lessons. And it may or may not be great, but they can say that they have it, and that person leaves, and the whole program disappears. And that's a scary thought. So I think big picture, and be able to convey that to your school board and your administration, unless you're an administrator on here asking that question. School board first.
Yeah, and I think school board and getting parents on board, but also just realizing if it's new to us, we're also learning. Don't reinvent the wheel. Contact these folks. Mark is here. You've got Chris. You've got Noel. You've got myself. Find out what are the speaking points. What are the important things that we need to show the school board? What is the learning that we need to understand up front? And I think that's a very helpful thing. Anything you want to add, Chris?
I mean,
What would
I
someone
would say
need?
go take a tour of a SmartLab close to you. Reach out to SmartLab, and they'll let you walk in and see the magic happen. I can tell you all these stories. Mark can tell you all these stories. Noel can tell you all these stories. Once you see it, you're going to understand what we're talking about. It makes it much more clear.
Yeah, the main thing is to see young people doing the work, and I think that was such a powerful thing in both of your presentations. All right, so we have some other questions. We have time for a couple. So this one is actually for Mark. How has using SmartLab tools and resources improved your schools, including for your teachers? We all know teaching is a stressful profession right now. How has this program helped teachers?
I wish I could put Stacy Ricker on. She's on just as watching, but I'll tell you what it's done. It's made them believers, absolute believers that kids can do a lot of stuff, and you don't have to. And Chris hit the nail on the head. Come up here on my board. I'm going to have you do this and then this and then this. What if the kids did the work? And the kids did the exploring, and the kids did the learning. And I have seen our facilitators, they're skipping out of the building like la da 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 da. And then there's some other staff members, and it's okay. I mean, it happens. I was one of them at one time in my career, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this day has been brutal. And the kids are the ones that are fired up. The kids are the ones going to other teachers and saying, can I go back to the SmartLab? That's unfortunate if you're that particular teacher, but that actually happens. Can I stay in here? Actually happens. When we ran our surveys last year, it actually was how many periods, or they called it hours, how many hours can we do this for? And obviously the state requires some things, so we can't do it all day. But that being said, they love it. So it has changed the culture into they are doing things in other classes that teachers weren't expecting before. And that's exciting.
Chris, you and I have a similar background in our undergrad. We both were majors in computer science and in STEM. So we got to know about STEM and computer science before it actually became a career cluster and became popular in schools and part of education reform. What tips would you have for a teacher that has watched this webinar, has seen our work online, and they really want to get into SmartLab? They really want to get into the program, but they're lacking a little bit of confidence in themselves because they don't have the STEM background. What advice would you give them?
So the best part and the most effective facilitators are the ones that play dumb. And let me explain that. If you know something, I'm a coder by my background. I'm a coder, and my first year I struggled with coding rotations because I wanted to correct every single thing the students did. Now we have many policies in place where they have got to look up 3 questions before they ask me. I take a step back. If they ask me a question, I ask them another question. And eventually they're going to start researching and start figuring out themselves. So I've learned that if I play dumb and I say, well, I don't know, I've never coded anything before. What do you think we should do? And I'll sit down with them and I'm like, well, why did you put that there? Like, and I'm working it through them. They're teaching me where they think they're teaching me, and they're getting more hands-on approach, and they're learning at much higher rate than they would if I just stood up there and told them what to do. So honestly, the best coaches and the best facilitators are the ones that let the students lead. Play dumb.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I'll say one more thing, and then we'll pass it over to Noel. There's two types of thinking that anyone needs if they want to be a problem solver and a critical thinker. Number one is declarative knowledge. They have to know the facts, but also procedural knowledge. That's why I love frameworks, like a design process, like a PBL plus process, just a process. When young people focus on the process and not so much on the product, then learning happens over time, and then they do better the next time.
Don't be afraid of letting the kids play and build things right away.
From the outside looking in, STEM can look like playing a lot, and SmartLab adds education on top of it.
The access that they get here, things that they have never seen before.
For our scholars to have the opportunity to build those kind of projects.
With robots and circuitry.
They go just places that we never would have imagined.
So there's a great deal of learning that happens not only with our scholars, but also the facilitators.
I think that's been really fun, is learning with the students and not knowing all the answers.
We've tried to become more of a facilitator of learning. It's giving kids opportunities to really explore in areas around STEM.
I don't think there is a project in SmartLab that I wouldn't enjoy.
Today I learned how to do more coding. You make your own comics.
We built an art bridge because I like directing the circuits.
Like there was a built-in camera and I could see everything. You can create your own animations.
It's really fun getting to experiment with all those projects.
De una ratón haciendo los get to do a lot of fun stuff. And then we can just explore with it.
We get to learn a lot of new things about technology. Problems that could actually occur in real life.
I feel proud of myself and excited to share this information to other people.
In a SmartLab, they have the chance to really take ownership of what they learn and what they do. They can move around the class a lot. It's very engaging. And when their learning is grounded in things that they're interested in, then it keeps their attention really well.
They really have the chance to learn to problem solve not just the task at hand in the SmartLab, but also problem solve the new relationships that they're engaging with other students. They learn to work with people who maybe think differently than they do.
We are playing, we are building and learning, but also we're trying to become better at understanding how things work.
It's actually shown our community what our students are capable of. Because they come into the SmartLab, they tour, they talk to students, and they see the children who've had that elementary SmartLab experiences. They're more articulate, they're better able to work with their peers, and they're better risk takers. They're not afraid, they're just ready to create. And that is really impressive to our community.
I want them to be independent and courageous, problem-solving individuals, so that whatever they choose to do, they're successful and they don't give up and they persist.
Our Smart Labs are the tool for career and college readiness and career exploration. In the Smart Lab, I feel like anything that I work on could benefit me in my future.
We need to get our students ready to be able to solve any problem, not just the ones we think are going to happen or the ones that are happening, but give them the skills to figure out and solve all problems.
Yeah, it's not like other classes because it's different.
Noel, take it away, sir.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys. And I want to say too, or at least acknowledge, there's a lot of other great questions here, but we do want to be respectful of people's time. We'll share a little bit about how you might be able to connect with George and Mark and Chris as well. But also thank you, Angelique. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Benjamin. We will be able to find an opportunity to loop back around with you, but I really appreciate the audience participation and a huge round of applause for George, for Chris, for Mark. Chris and Mark, I don't have to tell the educators on the line here that your days are, beyond full. And to be able to take the time out to spend some time with us, share your experience, that's just a really well-rounded community effort that I see you guys putting in. So I really appreciate that. Thank you everybody for participating. A couple closeout. We do have some resources. Check those out. I know George also provided some additional resources, some freebies that you can get. People asked about the QR code. You'll have that in those links as well, so you can check those out. And that's all we have for today. I appreciate everybody's time. Again, George, Mark, Chris, thank you. And to the audience, thank you guys for showing up and hanging out with us and giving an hour of your time. Looking forward to the next round.